Mortal Shell has been touted as one to watch in the Souls-like genre, partially by its own admission, driven by passion for Miyazaki's works and others like it. Will it deliver visceral combat, enchanting lore, and an experience to replay for years, or does it come away feeling a little hollow? I know it's a bit of a cardinal sin, pun semi-intended, to mention Dark Souls in a game review, but for here, it's very much warranted. The small team of 15 wear their influences on their sleeve, and it's an overall better experience because of it. It isn't distracted with overhauling every aspect to shy away from the genre, which allows their creativity in other regards to shine through. Perhaps one of the biggest innovations to the genre itself is the harden and shell mechanics, but before getting here, it's time to talk about basic combat. You have a roll and sprint option for quick movement, and that's combined with a heavy and light attack, which is used with right and left trigger respectively, and a bumper which can parry, much like that of Dark Souls. In lieu of a traditional block mechanic, you can harden to knock back attacks, and in this, your entire body becomes like stone and their attacks deflect off you lazily. The key to this is that it can be used midway through attacks to both change your attack pattern and prop up your defense at the drop of a hat. To put it bluntly, this system is fantastic. The general swings in Mortal Shell are rather slow due to the design of your characters in the world, and being able to break them up adds a wonderful rhythm to combat. Weaving in and out of attacks, parrying, hardening and attacking feels like a much more synergetic combat system than ever before in Dark Souls. This is further helped by its cooldown, making you learn when in your combo is best to harden and when you should just roll away. This moves us on to the whole Mortal Shell part of Mortal Shell. The land you awake in is a blighted one, filled with chaos and despair. You must journey in a possibly vain attempt to ascend from it. You are tasked with killing a handful of central bosses to harvest key items to bring back to your base in the middle of a treacherous swamp. You play a pale, frail creature who inhabits the bodies of dead soldiers to use as a sort of human mech. Upon possessing them, you gain an extended health pool, abilities and options for leveling up. The level system isn't as large as a traditional RPG, but it makes up for it in its uniqueness. Each shell you find has a set of upgrades, abilities like more health and new moves, and an upgrade to resolve, which is a separate bar that, upon charging, allows you to perform special moves. The upgrade path in Mortal Shell does not make you nearly as powerful as you can get in Dark Souls. You can make your weapon stronger, or health larger, but only incrementally, and over-leveling is near impossible with well-defined level caps. The addition of Mortal Shells gives you an extended life system similar to that of Sekiro before it. On the bottom left corner of the screen, there's a little circle next to the health. Upon resting or after a certain amount of kills with certain upgrade paths, it fills with a white orb. This means you have another life saved. After your health reaches zero, you're knocked out of your Mortal Shell and the world slows down. If you can rush back and hop into your shell, your health is restored and you are there to fight another day. At least until you die again. This adds yet another layer of tacticality to each fight, as you might intentionally use your shell for a health boost or an extra strong attack as your skills allow you. Speaking of health, the uncertainty of the world of Mortal Shell itself even spreads to the health system. There is no set restorative items from each rest like your Estus flask. You must salvage mushrooms, rotten food and roasted rats to give yourself a momentary health restoration in battle. Mushrooms can be methodically picked after a set amount of time in each area, which might occasionally leave you waiting around, loot in hand, for them to grow. In this sense, your life is cleverly used as a resource, sometimes opting to use one death in your shell instead of your precious mushrooms. Not a sentence I thought I would ever say. While all of this is important to the way I personally see the game, it would all be pointless if the combat didn't feel great. Luckily, it does. This is perhaps the closest I've ever felt to a true Souls-like experience in recent times. The combat is visceral and powerful, yet very methodical. The same can be said for your enemies. The way they move, interact and fight feels so authentic to the true experience underneath it. As you see characters exploring the world who are your enemies, you can see them interacting with each other in campfires and occasionally they pull out a loot. Sometimes it's addictive just to sit there and listen. And this authenticity to the way in which they act makes the world feel more full and more desperate as you see the characters behind these enemies. Combat as well feels very deliberate in a way that's hard to mimic. This is the type of game I can imagine getting a 1 HP or no Mortal Shell run by some madman as it feels so good and intentional. I never felt like I was risking some random number generator in combat. I never felt lucky and like I just somehow fluked it. Even every win felt like my own and felt so satisfying because of this. I really took a cheeky hit and thought that shouldn't have hit me. It instinctively teaches you something that's so great about Souls-like in general. When you get hit and when you die, you feel like that's your fault so you can grow, whereas in other games and some poor imitations of the formula, they just feel arbitrarily hard, filled with traps and things, and then you can't grow from that experience. You don't feel like you've made a fault, and it really places the emphasis of your bad decisions on you in the same way that Dark Souls does. And I think that's something wonderful that Mortal Shell does. The same can be said for the overall experience. It feels methodical, deliberate, and overall rewarding. Its story is dark, but esoteric enough to get some fun out of it, and its world and enemies feel horrifying in that beautiful FromSoft way. Its combat just all around great. From start to finish, this experience was genuinely fantastic. There are only two main issues I had in my time with Mortal Shell. Occasionally, the murky colour palette felt downright confusing in exploration and not always in a fun, labyrinthian way. Now, this can be displaced through certain areas. With the starting area, some of the swamps felt too murky to really know what you were doing, whereas looking at other parts within the world, say for instance the third area I went to, I'm not entirely sure what the correct way to go at it, had looping round corridors and things that really reminded me of that beautiful level design of Dark Souls. Dark Souls has this wonderful way of making the world feel so great and so real by using shortcuts tactically and other parts of the world you can see from the distance. And Mortal Shell certainly attempted that. At some points it didn't feel nearly as concrete, but when it did feel like that, it felt great. That level design, you can see the team themselves have been a fan of this genre for a while, and it just picks up so many fundamental things. When I'm talking to someone in person, I try to express how much I like Dark Souls without coming across as pretentious, or, well, I mean, I do come across as pretentious, but anyway, when I express the things I like about Dark Souls, the things that Mortal Shell gets right is exactly that. It gets this atmosphere, this cruel and oppressive atmosphere right, and it gets level design down. It gets these stories, this esoteric design, and not only that, but it's combat. It's visceral and meaty combat, but it also feels precise. It doesn't feel fluked or weird, and I think that's something it does do. But then this moves you on to my second main criticism, which is the playtime. My first run took 6 hours and 47 minutes, 40 of which was just me messing around in New Game Plus afterwards by whacking pesky monsters and playing loot on top of their dead body, you know, the usual stuff. But it only really took me 5 to 6 hours to actually finish the game. Now, of course, I'm a veteran of the franchise, but I'm not of that sort of style, but I'm not excellent at it or anything, as you'll see from probably this terrible gameplay on the screen. You know, someone who's more accustomed to Dark Souls could do it in 3 or 4 first time, I imagine, or maybe even less. But if you newish to the genre, it could take you maybe 15. So that is something worth mentioning, but I think it's also worth mentioning that it's definitely replayable, and not only that, but it's cheap. It's half the price of a new price game, so these are definitely things that need to be brought into attention. And even with those criticisms, it's definitely a game you have to look into. Now, normally I find scores a little bit arbitrary due to the fact that we're looking out for different things in a game. What I like, you might not like, vice versa, but my personal score for Mortal Shell will be very high. It's low price, short playtime, and slightly easier combat due purely to its mechanics make it a fantastic place to look around within the Souls-like genre. If you have any interest in this title, I would advise picking up as soon as you can. And that's it. That was my review of Mortal Shell. There was so much more I wanted to talk about here. I wanted to go more down pretentious routes, analysing the lore and gushing about what makes the genre so good. But I thought it would bog it down too much, so maybe I'll do that in the future. A key for this game was provided to me by PlayStack and Mortal Shell's PR team, and I'm very grateful for that, as it allowed me to get this out, hopefully in time for the embargo. No compensation was given, or will ever be given, to shape my opinions or review. All dumb opinions in this video and subsequent videos are mine, and you can't have them. If you like this, please consider giving the video a like, commenting, subscribing, letting me know good things, because I'd like to hear that sometimes. And have a good day. Thank you for watching.